Hey guys, Chelsea here from Making Manzanita, and today I'm going to be sharing a compilation video of 7 different easy accent walls that you can do in your home. First step is a faux brick accent wall, and this one is so much fun. It was actually featured in American Farmhouse magazine, so super proud of that. And this was an accent wall that we did in our laundry room. As you can see here, we had this just boring, ugly upper cabinet above the washer and dryer that we ended up removing. And we put a faux brick wall here. And I'm going to show you how to do it on a super budget. So we are already rocking and rolling on this faux brick wall. So what we've done so far, as you can see in the video, we removed the cabinet. We drew some lines on here where the brick will stop because we're gonna eventually end up building a folding counter, and then a cabinet and a sink will go here. So we didn't need to take the brick all the way down to the floor. One little snag that we ran into was the line where the brick was gonna stop and the folding counter was gonna start ran right into an outlet. So what we did is, well, what Logan did is he split up the outlet, so we'll have one below the line, below the counter for the washer, and then we'll also have one above, just in case we need to plug anything up on top of the washer and dryer. All right, so next up, we are going to be cutting out some of these bricks so that where the two panels meet is a better seam. If we didn't do that, which I've seen in a lot of tutorials, they have trouble where the two panels meet and they're doing the German schmear finish like we're doing. The line is pretty visible and it's hard to cover up, so to disguise the line, what we're going to be doing is cutting out these half bricks so that the panels will interlock and there will be no seam in the middle of the panel. So we're again just going to use the jigsaw to cut these pieces off and have a better seam. So this method of cutting the panels to fit together kind of like a puzzle with the jigsaw actually worked surprisingly well. So my number one tip if you're doing a faux brick wall like this is definitely cut the brick wall panel seams to fit together like a puzzle. Otherwise, those seams are definitely going to be pretty noticeable. There would be tons of bricks that look like they were just cut right down the middle, and even if you do the German schmear finish, you definitely are going to notice it. So definitely do that if you're planning on doing a wall like this. The next thing we did was fill that line in between the two panels with caulk. And this isn't absolutely necessary, but we thought that it would just give it a nice, more professional finish. So you definitely need to fill the line with something, and caulk is a great option. We used a flexible caulking that is great for temperature changes, which you're probably going to have in a laundry room. So that's what I would recommend. Then we applied the joint compound to get that German schmear finish. And you can see here, I started with just that small putty knife, and we quickly realized that Logan's method was much better. He grabbed the Hawk and trowel, and it only took him probably about 10 or 15 minutes to do the entire wall. So applying that German schmear was pretty easy. All you do is plop the joint compound onto the wall and then scrape it off. And then you're going to want to let it dry for several hours before you move on. So you can see here, Logan's just finishing up the wall. Again, this only took him a few minutes with that Hawk and trowel. If you're using a smaller putty knife like I was trying to do, it's going to take much longer. So after it gets all dried, you want to wipe some of that off. And you may not know this, but joint compound actually wipes off of everything and washes off of everything with just simple water. So all you need to do is just grab like a damp rag and wipe some of that joint compound off. And then one thing you definitely need to do before you move on is seal it somehow. So joint compound is a porous material, so it needs to be sealed somehow. We chose to do this with a watered down white paint. And you can see here, it definitely lightens up the brick wall. And for me, that's the look I was going for. But if you didn't want to lighten everything off, you still do need to seal it. So if you don't want to lighten it up, you could try to use something like a water-based polyacrylic, which would seal it but not discolor it. So that would just be my 2 cents there. Don't just leave the compound and walk away. You definitely need to seal it somehow. Next up, we trimmed out the edges of the faux brick wall. We just used some 90-degree trim to kind of finish it off and make it look professional. And if you missed this at the beginning of the video, we are or we were planning at this point to add a folding counter and a sink. So that's why the brick doesn't go all the way down. We did end up finishing this, so no worries. It looks great once we got the folding counter and sink in there, but I loved this accent wall. Next up, so we are so thrilled to be working with Bear and doing a fun project with their Bear box and their 2020 color of the year, which is this pretty green, Back to Nature. We're actually going to be incorporating several of their color trends for 2020. We're going to be incorporating 6 of these beautiful colors into our project. Alright, so I started by drawing out kind of a rough sketch on the computer several days ago when I was figuring out my colors. As you can see here, these are the colors we're using. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to get this kind of transferred up on the wall, and it does not need to be perfect. I'm not worrying about getting it perfect to this sketch, but I just kind of want the same general layout. So that's what I'm going to do now, and I'm just going to use a pencil. First bottom color on, and I think it looks great. It was pretty easy. I think the hardest part was probably blending my brush strokes because I am using a brush, not a roller. And I'm doing that because the texture of the roller and the brush is different, and you definitely have to do all the lines with the brush. And I didn't want to have to worry about 2 different textures on the paint. So I am brushing it all. It does take more time, and you do have to kind of worry about brush strokes. fun one. Next up, we have a clipboard wall, and this is perfect for hanging up kids' art in your house. What I'm gonna do is something to hang up kiddos' artwork because Cal has been making a lot of stuff, and I just want a place to put it that is also cute and fits kind of with our home, but I just want to make it special so that he can hang up his pictures and stuff that he draws. So that is coming next. So I ended up using a foam paintbrush to paint the clipboards, and it worked great. We also used acrylic craft paint for the actual paint, and depending on the color of paint, I needed anywhere between 3 and 5 coats for the clipboard. The lighter colors definitely required more coats than the darker, and there were some visible brush strokes afterwards. It's not perfect. The real star of the show here is going to be your kids' artwork. All right, so I actually started painting these a few days ago, just because I knew there was a lot of them and a lot of different colors, and I needed them to have worked in drying time. So these are the ones I've already done. 2 green ones, 2 gray ones. I had also done white, which I needed to do another coat. The white is this is with 4 coats, and I'm still seeing marks. So it's proving to be troublesome, but I'm gonna try to finish them today. I've got 2 more colors of green and then this yellow, which I'm thinking is probably too yellow. I wanted more of like a mustard, so I'm probably gonna need to mix this maybe with like some black to get the color I'm looking for. But I'm just gonna keep painting these. One thing I am doing is taking off the little plastic things, these little things. They just pop right off. So get these painted and then get them up on the wall. So the clipboard wall is coming together. I started hanging it and realized I was missing 2 like command strips, which is what I'm using to put the clipboards on the wall. And I thought I was gonna have to order more, but I just found some. So I can get the last 2 clipboards up, and then we'll be done with this baby. Doesn't it look good? I love it. Where's that one gonna go? Right there? Okay. You got it? Or do you need help?
I need help.
You need help. Okay, I'll hold it and you put it in. There you go. Oh, that looks good there. What else are we gonna put in? Oh, should we put those paintings up? Oh, okay. Where should that go? Hey guys, Chelsea here from Making Manzanita, and today we're going to teach you how to make a wooden letter accent wall using the X-Carve CNC machine. Guys, I am in Callaway's room and we are getting ready to start a fun project for this room. As many of you know, we are getting ready to convert our house to a vacation rental. We announced that a couple months ago, and we've been looking for a new house. Haven't found anything yet, but fingers crossed. But as we look, we are starting to work on some of those fun projects just to make this house have some more unique experiences throughout, so it's just more fun and unique for the visitors that are going to be coming through here. So one thing we're doing is creating even more uniqueness to this wall, which already has this really cool mountain mural. I'll go ahead and put the tutorial for that in here. It was super easy to do. We did it a couple years ago, but we are going to be cutting out a quote that's going to go up on the wall, and it's going to be so cool. I can't wait. We are teaming up with our friends over at Inventables and using our X-Carve, which is a cool CNC machine. We made those Oregon coasters not too long ago with it. So we're still getting our feet wet with the machine and learning how to use it, but we're going to be using it for this project, and I'm so excited about it. So let's get started. So the X-Carve uses a program called Easel, and we have the file in the description below. In our blog post, we have a link directly to the file. If you also have an X-Carve, you can just click that link and open this project right up in Easel and start cutting right away. And then in the blog post, we also describe exactly how we created the file if you wanted to create your own quote that is different from ours. And we decided to go with MDF wood just to save a little bit on cost because lumber is so expensive right now. So we decided to paint it, and we're using a white primer and white spray paint. I just love that little handle that I attached to the spray paint. I'll be sure to link it in the description below. It just makes the spraying a lot more consistent with a can of spray paint. So I did several coats of primer. That MDF wood really soaks up that paint. So I had to do several coats there of the primer and then followed it up with white spray paint. Then just be sure to let that spray paint dry really thoroughly before handling the letters, because you'll get fingerprints in there if that paint hasn't had a chance to dry and cure. Next, we brought the letters inside and got them ready to hang. And we ended up using command picture hanging strips, and we cut them into smaller sizes so they would fit on the back. And then we put several across the backs of the letters, and it worked perfectly. To hang the letters up on the wall, it really helps to have two people. And what we did here was space out the letters on the floor in front of the wall just to get an idea of the spacing that we wanted. And then we started to hang the letters up on the wall. And it helps to have one person hold a big level to align the bottoms of the letters, and then the other person attach it to the wall with the picture hanging strips. And you want to just press into place for 30 seconds to secure with those picture hanging strips. And ta-da! That's it, guys. Doesn't it look like $1,000,000? I am already crossing our fingers that the visitors that come to our home when we turn it into an Airbnb are gonna love it as much as we do. I know that this is a kid's room, so I really couldn't resist this adorable little felt campfire that I found. It's the perfect extra little touch. My kids love it, and I know that when we have visitors, many little kids will be staying in this room because it'll be our bunk room, and I know that they're gonna have fun playing with this little campfire set. Don't you? I hope you guys enjoyed this video on how to make a quote wall like this in your home using the X-Carve system. While you're here, we would love it if you would subscribe to our channel. We share weekly DIY and renovating tips, and then check out this video next. I will see you guys next week. Have an awesome week. Hey guys, Chelsea here from Making Manzanita, and today we are going to teach you how to install a DIY slat wall. This is the corner of the living room that we're adding it to, and we are using plywood as a fun alternative to make it a little bit cheaper. You want to start by cutting the plywood pieces down to size. We used about 1.5 inches wide to mimic a 1x2 piece of hardwood. Alright, so we are starting the next project in our living room makeover. And we've got all the wood cut. We are doing some accent walls with these fun wood slats. So I wanted to kind of walk you guys through how we're doing this and saving a ton of money. Because if you haven't heard, lumber prices right now are crazy, ridiculous high. So if you were doing a slat wall like this, which are becoming very popular, you could buy hardwood like this. This is a 1x2, and it comes in this size. It comes usually in a longer piece. This probably was sold in like an 8-foot piece. This is just a piece of scrap we have. So you can see here that on the side of the wood grain, it's one solid piece of wood versus plywood, which is manufactured with a veneer on the front. So you can see here, this looks like wood grain, but that piece is very tiny. So you can see there's layers in plywood, and it's put together with other manufactured wood pieces and filler. So it's a lot cheaper to buy this, but from the front, it looks the same. And I kind of think this edge is kind of cool. We're just going to leave it exposed, but if you did want to cover it, they have like some tape basically that you could put on here. You iron it on to cover up the edge of the plywood, but we're just going to leave it. And you'll only just see it on the edges of our accent wall. So this is one way we're saving a ton of money on this project rather than buying the hardwood. We recommend starting with sanded plywood sheets. So the wood should already be pretty smooth, but it does help to quickly run an orbital sander over the surface with about 150 or 220 grit sandpaper, and just slightly sand the corners and the edges of the plywood, and then you can move on to sealing everything. And to do this, we used a matte finish polyurethane and just applied it with a foam brush. After giving that polyurethane a good chance to dry, you can move on with installing it on the wall, and this is the fun part. So for this, we used an arrow fastener brad nailer, and we loaded it up with an 1.5 inch 18 gauge brad nails, and then hooked it up to the air compressor and turned it on. All right, so we are installing, and it's going really quick and it's super easy. So the only thing I wanted to point out for this first piece back here, we put this one all the way against the corner, and then we held a big level against it because our walls are not necessarily straight and square. So we held a level on that first piece to make sure it was nice and straight, and then what we're doing in between on all the other pieces is we just have one extra piece that we're using as a spacer, and we're just turning it on its side. So this is the same slat on its side, so that's 3/4 inch for a space. So that's how we're spacing it, and then you can see that we're staggering the design. So every other board either goes to the ceiling or the floor. So the reason we're doing this is just to save a little bit of money, because a full sheet of plywood it didn't cover the entire ceiling. There was just a little bit, it was like 1 inch. So we didn't want to have some random gap. So we cut off the pieces, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 inches from each piece, and then we're staggering it and kind of just working that into our design. And then with those small pieces that we cut off, I'll show you what we're doing. I'm going to put those pieces over here on our stairs for the risers. So these risers will all have slats spaced out the same way as the accent wall, so it'll kind of tie all together. I think it'll be super fun and unique. And then we're also taking more slats, that's why we cut so many, and we're gonna wrap this entire doorway too in slats where it's painted gray. So just all of this. So just a couple other ways that we're pulling in the slats throughout the room to kind of tie everything together. Using an extra wood slat as a spacer between the boards made it really easy. You simply just turn that extra wood slat sideways, hold it up against the most recently attached wood slat, and that'll be your spacer. And just be sure the piece that you're attaching is pushed nice and flush against your spacer, and then you can nail it into place. It's seriously that easy, guys. The thickness of the plywood is 3/4 inches, so when you turn that slat sideways, that's exactly the distance that you will get between the pieces of wood. And as you go, you'll just continue to add the nails into the wall, and you want to do a few in the middle, and then be sure you get one near the top and one near the bottom. And again, we're using an 1.5 inch size brad nails for this. The hole that the 18 gauge brad nail leaves behind is pretty dang small, so you could totally get away with just leaving it and not filling it, but we used this wood filler, and it was a great match for the natural plywood finish that we used without any stain. We rubbed it right on with our finger and then immediately wiped it off and tried to get it as smooth as we could just using the palm of our hand. And by doing this, we avoided the need to sand that filled nail hole down later, because when you sand the wood, you're gonna sand off some of that poly finish, and we didn't wanna have to reapply it again once the wood slats were up on the wall. So it worked out pretty perfect. Here's what it looked like when it was all done before we added in the furniture, and then here's what it looks like once we got it all styled with our new furniture and our finished living room. Here's what it looks like all decked out with the new decor. I absolutely love how it turned out. I'm so glad we decided to add some of the scrap wood pieces there on the riser. I think it really ties everything together, and it was a good way to handle that riser on the stairs. And I love the little doorway that we wrapped with the extra wood slats as well. Hey guys, Chelsea here from Making Manzanita. Today we're going to teach you how to make a giant pegboard wall. We are doing a makeover in our home office, and this is the wall that we're going to be transforming. We are using large 4x8 sheets of 1/2 inch plywood, and you can see here that we bought a pegboard panel, which is only $17 at Home Depot, and we're using this as a guide on where to make our marks. So we simply clamped the pegboard onto the plywood sheets and then marked every 6th hole, because we want our spaces to be about 6 inches apart. And then you can see here I just used a Sharpie to make the marks on our plywood. You then want to start by drilling pilot holes on each of the marks. Now this drill guide definitely came in handy. For your pegboard, it's really important that the holes are drilled perfectly straight so that the dowels that go in the pegboard are nice and level. This simply attaches to your drill and gives you perfectly aligned holes every time you use it. It's really easy to use. You can see that when Logan was drilling the holes, he started by drilling very slowly. This is to prevent the wood from chipping out. And then once you get through that first or second layer of plywood, you can speed up a little bit. Now you can get your dowels cut. So the drill bit that we are using is a 1-inch drill bit size. So of course we are using 1-inch dowels. We cut them down to size roughly 8 inches long, and then we sanded the front edges just so they were nice and rounded. Now to hang the pegboard on the wall, we decided to go with a French cleat, which we made ourselves. You can see here, those are the long pieces of wood that have the angled cut, and they simply fit together. You attach one to the pegboard with glue as shown here, and then nail it in place, and then you attach the other to the wall. To make that angled cut for the French cleat, you simply adjust the blade on your table saw to be cut at an angle. Now it's time to move inside. You can see that we've already attached one side of the French cleat to the wall. Be sure that you're nailing that into the studs when you hang that up. And then you just slide on the pegboard. All right, so we're making progress on our pegboard wall, and we wanted to show you guys a little mistake. Not necessarily a mistake, but just something that we learned that we thought we would share with you if you guys are attempting this. So when Logan was cutting these dowels down, he just very lightly sanded them so they were nice and smooth. And now that we've got them in, you can see over here a little better. Some of them are just sagging, and you can see here there's just a little give because they're just a tiny bit too small. So we went out and got an unsanded one, and it's like nice and tight and it does not sag at all, fits perfectly. So if you're attempting this, do not sand the dowels down. These are 1-inch dowels, and it's a 1-inch bit, so you need that like factory roughness on there. So don't sand them. Now you could totally just stop here and you have yourself a nice giant pegboard wall that's super fun, but I wanted to paint some fun shapes on ours. So on one side over here by the door, I'm doing a semicircle. To do that, I took a piece of string and taped it to the side of the plywood there in the middle, and then I tied the other end on the tip of the pencil and just hold the string taut to draw the line. I also wanted to do a big stripe across the top, so I just drew a level line and then used frog tape to tape that portion off. And then over here on the left, I wanted to do kind of an arch shape. So we used that same method of string before. And then with the frog tape, before you start painting, be sure to press it down. I use like a credit card or a gift card and just press it down really well so that the paint doesn't bleed underneath. So I'm all ready to start painting. You can see here all my lines are drawn and my areas are taped off. One other way that you can prevent paint from bleeding underneath the tape is to start with the edges like I've done here with an angled brush and paint towards the line rather than against that tape. Then you can just fill in the areas. I also used an angle brush to very carefully paint along the pencil lines. And I also did the same thing over here, and then just remove your tape as soon as you're done painting. Don't wait for it to dry, and try to remove it at a 45-degree angle like I'm doing here. This is a little closer look at that French cleat. And then you can just get your dowels in place, figure out where you want it based on what you're organizing on your pegboard wall. I kind of came up with a design. I used some shorter pegs where I was just hanging stuff, and then the longer pegs will have shelves on them. So for the shelves, we used some extra plywood. This is 3/4 inch, but you could also probably use 1/2 inch. We cut them about 6 inches deep and had a little overhang on each side of the dowel. I was using my pegboard in our office, and I needed lots of craft supplies to be stored in here. So you can see here I got some jars. Those are from the dollar store, and I simply just put in some ribbon and some washi tape. And then I got these crates at Walmart. They're perfect for organizing all my craft paint. So I just simply stacked them up on one of the shelves and then just put all my craft paint, and I put them facing out so I can see what colors they are. and it adds a nice pop of color to the wall as well. So then you can just organize all the stuff that you want to put on your pegboard wall. You can see mine is mostly focused on DIY and craft supplies because that's what I needed stored in here. I also was able to hang my weaving loom up there, and then I built some yarn storage with just some scrap leather. And then you can see these shelves are mostly just for some more craft supplies. I got those bins at Walmart as well. They're perfect for just kind of rounding up some items. And I just love how it turned out. Next up, we have a stencil wall that I made with our Silhouette machine. Let's see how it all comes together. Hey guys, so today I'm going to be working on a little fun stencil project. And it's something I've never done before. It's a stencil for a wall. I am using my Silhouette machine to make a custom stencil, so I'll show you how I'm going to do that. And then we're going to be putting it on this faux brick wall above our new laundry sink. This is our new little folding counter, so it's going to go right here. So let's get to it. I started by designing the area on Silhouette Studio using a font I purchased on Creative Market. Okay, so you guys saw how easy it was for me to just quickly throw this design together. I did a time lapse, but I think it only took me, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes to throw it together. So one thing I did is I made it bigger. Here, I'll back up here so you can see. So I did make it bigger, and you can see it's going outside of my cutting area, which is this area here. And the Silhouette, I can only do 12 inches across because that's how big the machine is. So what I'm going to do, because I want it to I want the design to be wider than that on my wall. So I just went and measured the area, and I want it to be about 18 inches wide and about 18 inches tall is the area on the wall that I want to use. So I blew everything up so it's about that size. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of maneuver all these words around in my cutting area so that I can make it fit. And then I'll have to just cut out each word as a separate stencil and then put them up on the wall as a design together. I know that sounds kind of complicated, but I've done it a few times when I'm making signs and I have larger things, and it's actually not that hard. So all right, guys, do you see how easy that was? So what I've done is I've shifted all of the words besides the ampersand were too wide to fit 12 inches across. So I made it longer, and I can make it as long as I want. And I'll cut I'm not going to use a cutting mat on this, but I'll cut my stencil stuff, my contact paper that I'm using, as long as this design is. So I can make it as long as I want. I just can't go wider than 12 inches. So I've just adjusted all the words to go up and down. And then once they're cut out, I will cut them out individually for stencils. So let's get it cut out now. So this is what it looks like when it is cutting on the Cameo Silhouette. And I'm not using a cutting mat. So you just need to be careful that the paper doesn't get stuck on anything on the floor as it cuts. All right, so I just measured my wall where the stencil is going to go. And you can't even see them, but with a pencil, very, very tiny, I marked where the kind of boundaries of the stencil are. So this is the middle, this is the other corner, and I did the same thing down here. And I did that just based on where the faucet was, so it's going to be lined up with this. And then I put it about this high up. So I think that's going to be perfect when I go down here. This is where the stencil will end, and this is where it'll start. So it's kind of like eye level, well, a little higher than eye level, but I think it'll look good here above the sink. So now I'm going to get the stencil put on the wall, and then I'm going to paint it. It's really that easy. So next up, you can peel off the contact paper and press it up onto your wall. So you want to be sure that it is level as you apply, and you can just use the palm of your hand to press it really hard onto the wall. You especially want to pay close attention to the edges of the stencil to prevent bleeding. Make sure those are nice and pressed onto the wall. You can see it did take me quite a few tries to get the bottom level, but it's repositionable, so you should be able to try it out as many times as you need. All right, so I have started painting. You can see I am using a really cheap, nothing special stencil brush. This one is 3/4. And I am dapping the paint on very lightly. I'm getting just a little bit of paint. I'm getting most of the excess off. And then just kind of very gently dapping the paint on, just like that. And I think if you didn't want this like, if you didn't want this like dappled look, you could do multiple coats, very light coats, just like this. But I think I may leave it a little exposed like this, because I think it's gonna look vintage-y, like it's like paint wearing off. And that's kind of what the look I'm going for. So we'll see. So you can see I just continued making my way across the stencil, dapping that paint on, and I pulled back one of the letters just to see how I liked the look of the dappled paint, and I loved it. So I decided just to do one coat on it and just use that dappled look, and it did really look vintagey, kind of like the paint was wearing off. So that was kind of a cool effect that I wasn't planning on, but I really like how it turned out. So you can just continue making your way across the stencils, and then as you're done painting, you want to remove the stencils very carefully. You don't want to wait until it's dry. You actually want to remove the stencil as soon as possible. However, you're still going to wait for the middles, like the A and the D, the middle of those letters, to remove those. Ta-da! So you want to take it off as quickly as possible, just because that'll help. You don't want the paint to like dry and then it may peel up when you take it off. So you want to take it off as quickly as possible, except for these pieces in like the middle. You want to wait until until it's completely dry to touch it for those pieces. But so far, no bleeding. Again, I did really light. There's one, I guess that one kind of bled, maybe just a tiny bit. And then the only one on the small ones, can you be quiet please? The only one on the small ones, this D, looked like it did a little bit. I got a little heavy-handed. I didn't remember to dap off the paint. So, but I am not worrying about it at all, because this is kind of like rustic and I want it to look like a little worn. And so imperfection is fine with this. But I love how it turned out. I can't wait to get these middle pieces taken off either later tonight or tomorrow, and then to get it photographed. I loved that last one. This was seriously so easy to make. It probably only took me an hour or two tops. So definitely fits in with this compilation of 7 different accent walls that are super easy that you should try in your home. If you loved this video, be sure to let me know. Give it a big thumbs up, subscribe to our channel. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. And then, of course, watch this video next. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. We will see you next week. Bye, guys.